Good morning. This morning we'll be looking at the clavicle. Look at it here, the clavicle. So I'll be going into details about this bone called the clavicle. Like I told you the other time, the clavicle is a long bone that lies horizontally. And for information, if you look at this bone, it looks S-shaped, like the letter S. And it has two ends. It has the end that makes articulation with a bone at the middle here, which you call the sternum, and it also has the lateral end, which is also called the acromial end, and it makes articulation with the bone of the scapula called the acromion. So this bone has two parts to it. We have the part that we call, like where my hand is, we have the part we call the medial part, which is the medial 2/3 of the clavicle, and we also have this other small part here, which is called the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle. Then this medial 2/3, if you look at it very well, you see that it is convex anteriorly, while on the posterior end it is concave, while the lateral part is curves backwards and is concave, and it makes the articulation with the acromion, while on the posterior surface it is convex. Then this bone has some features. Like I said, it's a long bone and it does not have medullary cavity. It's also a subcutaneous bone. So that one is for that. Then the medial 2/3 of this bone is triangular in shape. If you do a cut section, if you cut through this medial 2/3, it has what is called borders. It has an anterior border, it has a posterior border, and it also has a superior border. It also has what is called surfaces, which is anterior surface, it has an inferior surface, and it has a superior surface. Then on the lateral end, you have the superior two surfaces. It has a superior surface, it has an inferior surface, while it has two borders. It has an anterior border and a posterior border. The clavicle has muscle attachments on it, which is, there are some muscles that will take origin from the clavicle, while some other muscles will insert on the clavicle. These muscles are, on the anterior 2/3, you have the pectoralis major. You have the pectoralis major on this side, and while on the lateral 1/3, you have the deltoid muscle. The deltoid muscle is there. Then you also have, when we look at this model here, if you can see this model, you see that this area is painted with red. Like here is for the pectoralis major muscle, this side, and while this other, the lateral 1/3, is for the deltoid muscle, the origin of the deltoid muscle. And on the superior border, you have the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And if you now turn the clavicle backwards, which is this backwards, you see that you have the insertion of deltoid. We have the insertion of deltoid on the back here. You have the insertion of trapezius on this back side here. And not only that, you also have that the clavicle has, on its medial side, you have the origin of sternocleidomastoid muscle. So these are some of the features that can be seen on the clavicle. Then the clavicle is easily fractured. It's mainly fractured at the between the medial 2/3 and the lateral 1/3 of the clavicle here. That is, this point is the point of easy fracture. So, and if you look at the ossification times of this clavicle, you see that the clavicle has two primary centers of ossification, and it starts from the 5th to 6th week of intrauterine life, and after that, the secondary centers of ossification takes place at the sternal end, and that of the acromial end. The clavicle is one of the bones that starts early ossification, and it's a bone that also takes up to 25 years to complete its ossification. So the clavicle, there are some clinicals, like the easy fracture of the clavicle at the between the medial two-thirds and the lateral one-third. Then there is also what is called the green stick fracture of the clavicle. So these are some of the features that you can see in the clavicle. Remember, before we go, that the clavicle has gives origin to some muscles, like the pectoralis major. It gives origin to deltoid muscle. Then posteriorly it gives insertion to trapezius. It also gives insertion on its inferior surface to a muscle called the subclavius muscle. So it has, on this lateral one-third, it has roughened areas like the conoid elevation, conoid tubercle, and it has the trapezoid line. The conoid tubercle gives origin to conoid ligament. So these are some of the things I can tell you about the clavicle. Thank you so much.